Because the clear belief was evolution.
Because
We have evolved to higher levels. And the clear Nazi teaching was blacks, Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals, and handicapped people are inferior levels of the evolutionary cycle. That is the justification for wiping them out.
In this video, Cliffe Knechtle engages a student on some of the toughest questions in theology and history. Why God judged certain nations in the Old Testament, what sin truly is, and how human evil leads to atrocities like the Nazi genocide. Cliffe argues that God's judgments arise from confronting profound moral corruption, explains sin as a deep violation of God's moral order, and explains why did Nazis committed such atrocities. Leave your comments down below. Now let's dive in.
what exactly would you characterize sin? What is sin exactly?
You bet. Sin is playing God.
Playing God?
Playing God.
It would not.
Sin is breaking God's moral absolutes.
So breaking his laws.
Sin is not loving God and not loving people. Hating God, hating people, being indifferent to God, being indifferent to people, that is sin.
But
The heart of sin is idolatry. The heart of sin is taking something good or something that's not very good and turning it into the ultimate. For instance, money is good. But to take something good like money and turn it into the ultimate, the reason that I live, that's idolatry. Sin is taking something good, like my mind, a gift from God, making it into the ultimate, being a rationalist and living for my reason. Sin is taking something good, my sexuality, and turning it into the ultimate, living for pleasure, for sexual pleasure. That's hedonism. Those are all different examples of sin. Taking something that could be good or not so good, turning it into the ultimate, and then living for that, instead of living for God and living for people.
so sin wouldn't exactly be disobeying God's laws.
Yeah, sin is disobeying God's laws.
But
Because
okay,
part of God's laws is, I'm to worship God, I'm not to worship the creation. I'm to worship the Creator, not the creation.
okay, but if you break one of God's laws, would that be considered sin?
Yeah.
But
Because if I break one of God's laws, what I'm saying is, God, I have a better idea on how to live my life than you do.
But God says in the Old Testament, do not kill. But you see him commanding his followers to kill. You see.
No, the
how would you
commandment is do
characterize
not
that?
murder. The commandment is not do not kill. It's murder.
Okay.
And God doesn't murder,
Okay.
and if any follower of Christ murders, that's sin. But I can promise you, if I and another follower of Christ walk into McDonald's, and there's a guy spraying machine gun bullets into little kids' bodies, and if I hit the guy high, and my Christian friend hits the guy low, and we break his neck in the process and kill him, that is not murder, sir.
Okay, so-
that is killing motivated by a drive to preserve the innocent from being slaughtered. That's ethically different from murder. Murder is me killing someone because of selfishness, hatred, or revenge.
Okay, well then that proves my point when he tells them to kill the women and children to drive out the Canaanites. Killing them, isn't that ethically wrong?
Okay, you're thinking well, good point. No, when God chooses to judge a nation, a people group, innocent people get swept up in that judgment.
So as long as God says that genocide and Holocaust is okay.
No,
But that's
God
not
is
exactly
choosing
what he
to
said.
judge people groups for what they did wrong. And because we're more interconnected than we would like to admit, innocent people were swept along in the judgment.
He, for what they
He
did.
did not
You mean
hire a
living-
guy to go in there and just wipe out evil adults.
You mean living? You mean by being wrong or doing wrong? You mean by living in a certain area and having a different belief and culture as theirs?
If you do evil, I don't care
He
what
tells-
culture you're in,
he
you are
tells-
responsible to God for that evil, and He will hold you accountable.
He tells the Israelites to kill men, women, to commit murder to the women and children because he says because they have different beliefs than you because you must
No,
drive
it is
them out.
not because they have different beliefs.
He
False.
says because they have
It is
false gods.
because they have done evil. They have sacrificed their babies on altars, calling that an act of worship. They have taught people that the way to know God is to have sex with a temple prostitute. And God judged those cultures for the slaughter, the way they slaughtered their innocent children, and for the way they taught people that the way to know God was to have sex with a temple prostitute.
Isn't that intolerant of their culture? That's their.
No,
You have
it's intolerant of evil.
You have cultures today that have headhunting, where the only way to become a man is to kill another man.
That's evil.
That's intolerant of their culture. That's basically saying no, because according to my culture, my religion. That's wrong. Isn't that being intolerant?
I can promise you that if you rescue a fellow Homo sapien from being cannibalized by a headhunter, that is good. And if you go into that situation and say, I'm sorry, it's all relative, and if this group of men wants to eat this guy's head, go right ahead, it's just fine because it's your culture,
But no,
that's
but
very
that's
sad.
but that's because it's my own culture. My own culture is not to see that, which means as following my own culture, I should stop that. But I'm still pointing out, like, you're saying God is saying to be tolerant when He shows in the Old Testament to be very, very intolerant of other people. When He tells them if they curse God, kill them. If they don't believe in God, kill them.
Killing Jews came from eugenics, from social Darwinism, that teaches that some people are a superior level of the evolutionary cycle, and these Jews and gypsies and homosexuals are an inferior level of the evolutionary cycle. Therefore, to help Nazi Germany move forward, we need to execute homosexuals, gypsies, and Jews. That is the philosophical basis for the Holocaust.
Darwinism came around the early 1900s, late 1800s, I believe.
1859, Darwin wrote Origin of the Species.
Yes, so socialists. But you had anti-Semitism before Darwin. You had anti-Semitism in the Middle Ages.
Absolutely. You had anti-Semitism in the first century.
One of the ideas of anti-Semitism was that they killed Jesus.
Agreed. We agree. Obviously, there's been too much anti-Semitism that has been fueled by an idea that the Jews killed Christ, so we're going to go after the Jews. But I can promise you, that is not what fueled the Nazi Holocaust. When you study Nazism and Hitler, what fueled the Nazi Holocaust was eugenics, racial superiority. Why? Because the clear belief was evolution.
Because
we have evolved to higher levels. And the clear Nazi teaching was blacks, Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals, and handicapped people are inferior levels of the evolutionary cycle. That is the justification for wiping them out.
they saw that, except going back to right and wrong being wrong, they saw that as right. If Nazis controlled the world today, that would be right.
And they would be wrong, I'm convinced. What about you? You think they'd be wrong or not?
That would be relativism.
No. Well, yeah,
If the
what you're
Nazis-
espousing is
If the
relativism.
Nazis control the world today,
Right?
killing Jews, blacks, anyone non-Aryan or
Right,
non-white,
non-Aryan.
that would be considered right. That would be considered culturally right, and they would see it as fact.
And I
that
would
they
contradict
are superior.
it. And I would hope you'd contradict it. Not because we're enlightened Westerners, but because we have consciences and rational minds that enable us to understand that that is absolutely wrong. I don't care how many people say it's right. I don't care whether my culture says it's right or not.
But then it's relative. It's coming from your own subjective viewpoint.
No, it's coming from a conviction that the human conscience enables us to tie into an objective moral.